Welcome, everybody. Hello, I'm Suzanne Borden, and I'm Moment Magazine's Special Project Manager, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Moment Happy Hour for today's Zoominar, Broadway Songs About the Jewish Experience You May Not Know, with Michael Levine and a special surprise guest. You're in for a real treat. Please note that today's Zoominar is being recorded and will be available later this week. We'll send you a link to the recording along with today's list of songs and additional resources to you in the next few days. Be sure to visit momentmag.com to register for upcoming Zoominars, including next Tuesday's program, Israeli Politics Today, How Did We Get Here and Where Are We Going? You'll also find all of the recordings to all of our past Zoominars at the site. In addition, check out Moment's Arts and Culture section, which includes a recent article about Broadway composer David Shire and lyricist Richard Maltby's 65 years of celebrated and creative friendship. You can also read 10 musicals by Jewish composers to watch in times of quarantine, written by Moment's beloved senior editor, Levine, and yes, she's Michael's mom. Again, visit momentmag.com to read more great articles, access our resources guides, subscribe to the magazine, and to make a donation that will help support our ongoing effort to bring you new and engaging opportunities like today's mini concert. At the end of today's program, if we do not run too long, Michael should have some time for Q&A. Just type your answers in the Q&A box, which you can find in your screen. Now on to our show. I'd like to introduce Michael Levine, who we consider a true friend here at Moment. Michael has worked as a musical director, pianist, vocal coach, and singer, and gives master classes on the performance of songs and auditions all over the world, from New York and Los Angeles to Switzerland and Bangkok, to Australia, Singapore, and Manila, and even Moscow and Martha's Vineyard. Michael musically directed a concert of the works of Stephen Schwartz, featuring Stephen himself, and produced and musically directed a CD of previously unrecorded songs by Marvin Hamlisch entitled Rediscovered Hamlisch, featuring Kelly O'Hara and other Broadway stars. In addition to all of his theater-related accomplishments, which are really too many to list here today, Michael has conducted orchestras in a number of cities around the country. It is my great pleasure to welcome Michael Levine.
Old man Rosenthal lay sick in bed. Soon the doctor came around and said, "No use crying, the man is dying. He can't live very long. Send my son here to my side," they heard the old man say. "I've got something to tell him before I pass away." Soon his son was sitting by his bed. "What's the matter, Papa dear?" he said. The old man said, "My son, before my days are done, I want you to know Cohen owes me $97, and it's up to you to see that Cohen pays. I sold a lot of goods to Rosenstein and Sons on an IOU for 90 days. Levi Brothers don't get any credit. They owe me for 100 yards of lace. If you promise me, my son, you'll collect from everyone, I can die with a smile upon my face." Old man Rosenthal is better now. He just simply wouldn't die somehow. He is healthy and very wealthy since he got out of bed. Such a change you never saw. He's got such rosy cheeks. He picks up in just 1 week. That should take weeks and weeks. Everyone who knew that he was sick couldn't tell why he got well so quick. They went and asked him to explain how he pulled through. Rosenthal replied, "Cohen owed me $97, and my son went out and made poor Cohen pay. A bill was owed to me by Rosenstein and Sons, and they settled on that very day. What could my son do with all that money if I should leave it all and say goodbye? It's all right to pass away, but when people start to pay, that's no time for a businessman to die. Hello, I'm Michael Levine, and thanks so much for joining me today. For the next hour, you will hear songs written by Jewish songwriters, mostly with a Jewish theme. Though all of these writers composed for Broadway, some of these songs were not written for a show. If you're looking for If I Were a Rich Man, you're in the wrong place. I want to show you some terrific tunes you're unlikely to know. For those of you who don't know me, as Suzanne said, I'm a vocal coach and musical director in New York City with one of the larger privately held collections of sheet music around. I've been collecting sheet music for many years, since I started school at Columbia University over 40 years ago, same class as Barack Obama. I owe the size of my collection to inheriting several private collections, specifically that of Arthur Siegel, who wrote the New Faces reviews in the 50s and 60s, and Peter Howard, who was my mentor for 15 years. Peter was a major Broadway conductor and dance arranger, writing dance music for shows like Chicago and Hello Dolly, etc. More on Peter a little bit later. The song I just sang was written in 1915 by a 26-year-old Israel Baleen, who you may know better as Irving Berlin. He wrote it for a vaudeville show at the Palace Theater on Broadway for a performer named Belle Baker. Now, our next song was also written for Belle Baker. In 1926, Rodgers and Hart had 5 shows playing on Broadway and in the West End. Their last musical, which opened on Broadway December 28th, 1926, which happens to be my mother's second birthday, it was called Betsy. Now, Belle Baker starred as a woman whose Jewish mother, Mama Kitzel, wouldn't let her brothers and sisters get married until Betsy, got married. Now, Belle could tell the show would not be successful, so she called her friend Izzy, Irving Berlin, and asked him if he'd let them interpolate one of his songs into the show. That song was Blue Skies. Didn't help. Betsy closed after a few weeks. However, we still have the score, even 100 years later almost. One beautiful ballad that gained popularity many years later is This Funny World, which is a just gorgeous melody. Here's another amusing song from this show. It's called the Stonewall Moskowitz March. Oh, Irving Caesar, who you may know from his lyrics to Tea for Two or Swanee and lots of other stuff, wrote the book to Betsy. He also collaborated on the lyrics with Lorenz Hart. Singing here today is Adam Bashian, who was one of the stars of the Dave Malloy musical Octet last year, which is now nominated for a Drama Desk Award. Ladies and gentlemen, the Stonewall Moskowitz March.
My name is Stonewall Moskowitz. It might be Bertram Boskowitz, and it might be Erwin Iskowitz, but please remember this Kowitz, then I give the people Joykowitz, for I love the hoi polloi Kowitz. I can mingle with the Goykowitz. I'm a Yankee Doodle Boykowitz. Am I wise and am I wily? Can I work just like a horse? Do I live the life of Riley? Why, absolutely, positively, naturally, of course. But in spite of my great name, Kowitz, I am still the very same Kowitz as I was when I first came, Kowitz. Straight from Moscow, just plain Moskowitz.
Thanks, Adam. Now, for over 10 years, I've been producing albums featuring songs from my collection. These are called Lost Broadway and more. You can get volume 3, which is called Michael Levine and Friends. I'm gonna actually show you volume 3. Here's volume 3, and it's called Michael Levine and Friends. You can get that by writing me privately at my email, which is broadwaymhl@aol.com. I also, as Suzanne said, I've also put together a compilation with my friend Craig Carnelia. We put together a compilation of songs that you're not likely to know by Marvin Hamlisch, and that's called, there's some pictures of Marvin, it's called Hamlisch Uncovered, and we have there's a lot of terrific songs there. You can find that on Amazon. Now I have a new volume that will be out shortly. It's all Jewish themes. I was going to call it Lost Broadway, The Jews, until my friend Robert Lobiando suggested that I call it Hold On to Your Yarmulkes, partly to honor a Burton Lane Broadway musical called Hold On to Your Hats. Now, you'll be hearing several tracks from this recording today, but just to make sure I have time, I'm cutting some of them, like the one you just heard, a little shorter than you'll actually hear in the full recording when you get them. I'm now jumping around 35 years to 1961 and Jerry Herman's first Broadway musical, Milk and Honey. Now, the story centers on a busload of lonely American widows hoping to catch husbands while touring Israel. And it's set against the backdrop of the country's struggle as an independent nation. It starred Molly Picon and Robert Weedy. I'd like to sing a song from Milk and Honey, the song that frames the musical. Most of you likely know that there's one Hebrew word that has many different meanings, and Jerry wrote about it. Shalom, shalom, you'll find shalom, the nicest greeting you know. It means bonjour, salud, and skol, and twice as much as hello. It means a million other things, like peace be yours, welcome home. And even when you say goodbye with shalom. It's a very useful word. It can get you through the day. All you really need to know, you can hardly go wrong. This is your home as long as you say shalom. The nicest greeting I know. Shalom means twice as much as hello. It means a million other things, like peace be yours, welcome home. And even when you say goodbye, if your voice has I don't want to go in it, say goodbye with a little hello in it, and say goodbye with shalom. Now, I'm sure many of you saw the recent revival of Fiddler on the Roof that Joel Grey directed. It was entirely in Yiddish. You can get that CD online, and it also includes all of the songs that were cut from the original Fiddler, and those are sung in English. Around 10 years ago, I decided to record some of these cut songs. I'd like to play you two of my favorite recordings now. First, Fiddler lyricist Sheldon Harnick will sing a song written for Lazar Wolf, the Butcher. Then you'll hear Austin Pendleton, the original Mottel the Tailor. He'll be singing a cut song for Mottel called You Could Have the Richest Man in Town. I vividly recall Austin and Sheldon here in my apartment rehearsing. Sheldon coached Austin and he said, it's like davening, you know, you could have the rich, and Austin was like, I got it, and he did. So here are Sheldon and Austin with me on piano. First, A Butcher's Soul.
You say a butcher has no soul, it cuts me to the bone. You'll tell me, if you please, how many butchers have you known? What gave you the idea that a man who makes his living handling liver, lungs, and kidneys has no heart? A butcher has his feelings, he is not a piece of meat. A man is not a chicken, you should hang him by his feet. You'll take and scratch a butcher, he's a man of flesh and blood, a human being, not a person set apart. A cow, a duck, a lamb, goose, a man needs more than that. A rib of beef cannot replace the hand a man must pat. A wife to love has no flaws. You could have the richest man in town. Like a queen you could live. You could have whatever you desire. Things that I couldn't give. You could have the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. You've only to tell them yes. They would give you trinkets of silver and garments of silk. You should have so much more. You deserve nothing less. You could have the richest man in town, but instead you chose me. And so how much richer could one man be?
Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Sheldon. In 1968, The Education of Hyman Kaplan opened on Broadway, starring Tom Bosley, Hal Linden, and my special guest today, Barbara Minkus. Now, you may recognize Barbara from her many appearances on Love American Style and other things, but here she is in person to be with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Minkus. I think she's there. I see her there. She's got to unmute herself, though.
You are on.
Now you're there.
Hey, hi.
Hi, Barbara.
One of my favorite people. Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me on this very special show about Jewish musicals that not too many people know about. And my favorite Jewish musical was, of course, The Education of Hyman Kaplan. I loved being in Hyman Kaplan, and it was such a beautiful musical, and it was so touching. It was based on Leil Rosten's Yiddish stories, and it was directed by Mr. George Abbott. Even his wife called him Mr. And Tom Bosley, as you said, was Hyman Kaplan, and I played Rose Mitnick, and Hal Linden played the arrogant Yessel Fishbein, who comes from the old country to marry Rose in an arranged marriage. The show is about immigrants who come to America at the beginning of the 20th century and settle in the Lower East Side of New York City. And of course, they have hopes and dreams for, a better life than what they had. Most of the characters in the show were in night school with each other, studying to be United States citizens. And that's where Hyman Kaplan, who is the class jokester, meets me, Rose Mitnick, and the smartest girl in class, and falls in love. So Hyman goes to Mr. Parkhill, who was the teacher, and asks, Mr. Parkhill, would you take this old Jewish love song that I have and make it into English? I want to send it to a fair maiden, but I need some help. So, but I'll sing it for you. Lieben dich, wer bin dich, du lieben dich, wenn ich will nah. And of course, Mr. Parkhill says, Hyman, please. It sounds very nice, but I don't know Yiddish and I don't speak Yiddish. And Hyman says, well, I happen to have made my own translation, but I think you can do better. I want it to be A1, high class, mit polish. And Michael, if you would sing that for him. And then afterwards, I'm going to sing, or the recording will sing, what Rose Mitnick sings when she reads this letter that Mr. Parkhill helped Hyman write.
So he sings. Loving you, look on me, what a fool I am, I should be loving you. I am only a nothing and nobody, You ask anybody, even another nobody, and they'll tell you what a nerve he's got. He should even dream that somebody could even look on him. Like, loving you, for always I'm loving you. And maybe I'll be miserable, I never mentioned it to nobody. Maybe I'll be miserable, I never did anything about it. But one thing I won't be miserable for as long as I live. Die, 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 die. I couldn't think of words for this line. Loving you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Barbara Minkus to sing The Real Loving You.
And so, here is this Yiddish song we used to sing in Russia, done over in English. I hope you like it. Signed, a friend from the class. P.S. Who sits 3 seats in front of you? Hyman Kaplan. Loving you. Who am I? Loving you. I am only a fool, any fool can see. To dream one day you'd love me. Loving you. Never daring to speak. If I told you and you laughed and turned away, could I live beyond today? And so I know a love song that no one else knows. And what is love? A willow that weeps as it grows. And so I know a love song that no one else knows. And what is love? A willow that weeps as it grows. Loving you. I'll go on loving you. And though I may regret things I didn't do, words I didn't say, I never will regret loving you.
Barbara. Lovely, just wonderful, Barbara. You want to talk to us again? Tell us, set up the next song.
Okay. The next song, which is the last scene in the show, is when Rose tells her parents that she can't follow tradition. She can't marry Yessel Fishbein because she loves Hyman Kaplan, and she has to follow her heart.
This was like your big 11 o'clock number in the show, right?
It was a great song.
And I should tell the audience that Barbara flew herself out to New York to record these 2 songs for my CD that's coming out, and I'm so honored that she did. And here's Barbara Minkus. Thank you for joining us today, Barbara. This is Barbara with When Will I Learn?
Please tell me what to think. I've no mind of my own. Please tell me what to do. I'm scared to stand alone. That's me. Oh, anything you say, I'm sure that you are right. Anything you say, yes, sir, black is white. That's me. How much longer will I be this way? How many hundred years from today? When will I learn? I've only one life, and I'm free to live it as I please. When will I learn to stand my ground and not to bend with every breeze? When will I dare to let my heart go? I have so much love I want to give. When will I learn? When will I learn? My life is mine to live. When will I dare to let my heart go? I have so much love I want to give. When will I learn? When will I learn? My life is mine to
Oh, God, man. God bless Barbara Minkus for coming to us today from Los Angeles.
I love you, Michael. I love you, love you, love you. Mwah! Thank you.
Now, moving on, in the 1940s, I'm jumping back a little bit, the 1940s, the Broadway songwriter Frank Lesser wrote the song Delicatessen of My Dreams. He and his wife would sing it at parties. While not part of any show, I thought that it was worth Join me, my sweet, for a bite to eat in the delicatessen of my dreams. Tempt me, my prince, with a handmade blintz in the land where the Russian dressing gleams, where salamis are endlessly long and lovely, and the liverwurst is bursting at the seams. You will be mine by the kosher sign in the delicatessen of my dreams. Lead me, my love, to that realm above, to the delicatessen of my dreams. Help me, my mate, to a heaping plate where the celery tonic gently streams, where the herring are patiently marinating, and the hot pastrami sits around and steams. We shall return for one sweet heartburn to the delicatessen of my dreams. From Frank Lesser from the 1940s. Thank you, Frank. Now, moving on, the composer Gary William Friedman had a big hit in 1970 with the musical The Me Nobody Knows. Madeline Guilford, wife of the actor Jack Guilford, who you're more likely to remember from his Cracker Jack commercial, but believe me, he did a lot of other stuff, suggested to Gary that he turn Leo Roston's book, like Barbara talked about Leo Roston, he was very popular in the 60s and 70s, The Joys of Yiddish, into a Broadway musical to be called Laugh a Little, Cry a Little. Get it? The Jewish laugh a little, cry a little. Gary was thrilled with the idea. Madeline hooked him up with Arnold Horwitz, who'd written the lyrics to the musical Plain and Fancy in the 1950s, which happened to be Peter Howard's first musical. Remember Peter Howard I mentioned before, years before. Arnold decided to expand The Joys of Yiddish into an actual book musical about a family who came over to Ellis Island around the turn of the century. They moved to the Lower East Side, and the musical dealt with their lives in vignettes. For example, their local cinema was showing The Great Train Robbery, which was of course a silent film with subtitles. Now, one of the family members in the theater would be hired to shout out the subtitles in Yiddish during the film. I learned a lot about the show from Gary Stevens, who was the 11-year-old grandson of Jan Pierce in the musical. It played the Goober and Gross Circuit, which was a series of outdoor tent theaters like the Westbury Music Fair in Long Island and Valley Forge in Pennsylvania. Oh, and the musical director was, wait for it, Peter Howard, just to tell you how Peter has a lot of stuff to do in these days. Unfortunately, during the run, Jan Pierce broke his leg. Now, they almost got Zero Mostel, the original Tevye, to replace him, but ultimately Jan's breaking his leg spelled the end of the show. Gary Friedman gave me several of the songs from the show, and I got some friends to record them. I think you'll all recognize Richard Kind from his voice, but we'll show you photos in case you don't. And he's joined by Michael McCoy, Nora Menken, and Marnie Robb on piano, and me, myself on the piano. The songs are called Piano in the Parlor and Mama the Balabusta, which I think you can probably figure out what that means. Here's Piano in the Parlor.
A sofa,
An armchair.
some pictures on the wall. They help to make a room look nice when people come to call.
A carpet.
Some flowers improve it even more. And
Yet
yet there's still one special thing the room is waiting for. A piano in the parlor.
In the parlor, a piano.
Merely sitting in the corner is a lovely sight to see.
Though it's really not a parlor.
And we're none of us musicians. A piano in the parlor fills the room with melody. It's a broken down piano from which several keys are missing.
And the ones that aren't missing sound a little bit off key.
But by standing by the window,
It announces to the neighbors.
they are living side by side with an artistic family.
We never should have done it, and we know we can't afford it, but we saw it in a window on the corner of Delancey.
Standing in the window looking lonely and neglected, we could almost hear it saying, doesn't anyone want me?
We suddenly decided, yes, we suddenly decided, though a lot of things we need more, and for months it won't be paid for. We just had to go and buy it, cause there simply had to be a piano in the parlor. In the parlor, a piano. Really sitting in the corner is a lovely sight to see. Though it's really not a parlor, and we're none of us musicians. A piano in the parlor fills the room with melody. A piano should have done it, and we know we can't afford it, but we saw it in the window on the corner of Delancey. Really standing in the window, lonely and neglected. It's a lovely sight to see. Something anyone might need. We decided, yes, we decided that we're gonna use the instrument for months it won't be paid for. Piano in the parlor makes a room just right. A piano in the parlor, you can play
always cleaning what's clean already? Who keeps the house on his foundation strong and steady? Who's busy scrubbing unless she's mopping? Unless she's cooking or she's sewing till she's dropping? Who is this pearl of perfect luster? Who though you try to fluster, you can't fluster? Who is this wonder we give a plus to? Her name is Mama, the Filibuster. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Her name is Mama, the Filibuster. Who knows what you think before you think it? Who tells you drink it's good for you until you drink it? Who, when you need it, supplies $1? Who, when he yells at you, tells Papa not to holla? Who finds your derby just where it wasn't? Who's there to kiss the spot that hurts until it doesn't? You haven't guessed yet, you surely must have. It's good old Mama, the Filibuster. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Her name is Mama, the Filibuster. Can tie a shoelace, who always shows ya? Who makes a matzo ball that's practically ambrosia? You want a cookie? Who makes a cookie? Whose built-in radar tells her when you're playing hooky? A suit you're buying, you start to hassle. Who does the salesman know he cannot razzle-dazzle? Fantastic woman is what she's just a. That's why she's Mama, the Filibuster. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Her name is Mama, the Filibuster. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Oh, Mama, Mama, Mama. Her name is Mama, the Filibuster, yeah!
So I guess you probably know what filibuster means. Now here's something you don't hear every day. This is actually a cut song from Laugh a Little, Cry a Little called Aaron's Journey. How's that for obscure? I forgot a couple of performers who were on that last recording, 2 recordings that I didn't mention. One is Nora Menken, and Nora is going to be on this record, the next 2 recordings that you're going to hear. Nora Menken, Richard Kind, and they're joined by Gary William Friedman himself, the composer. And this is followed by the lovely Nora Menken singing a song called Morris Brodkin Loves Me. But first, the rather lengthy, but it tells a nice little story. This is called Aaron's Journey.
Aaron, what happened?
Could you be a little more specific? I went down like Mama told me to the Hebrew Aid. Borrowed $20.
Ah, that's great.
For some garments from a store I could sell from door to door. And so door to door, you sold the garments? Wait. A special territory was to me assigned. Long Island.
Where's Long Island?
That I had to go and find. When you travel to Long Island, you must take a train, which first requires a trolley to uptown.
Uptown?
In passing, let me say, like the night is from the day, that's how different the uptown is from the down. A place like ancient Rome was in the Caesar's reign. Tall buildings, marble mansions. Will you please get on the train? So, I took the train.
He took the train?
The train I took to the territory waiting there for me. On and on the coaches went, but I passed the time content with a book about a fascinating new philosophy. Solipsism, whose founder, Bishop Berkeley, holds the position that what we call reality only exists as we perceive it to. Here, I'll give you an example. Aaron, continue. I'll continue. At the first stop in Long Island, I got off the train with the garments I was peddling in my hand. And I took a look around, and suddenly I found I had come upon a wondrous wonderland. There were chestnut trees and flowers blooming everywhere. There were lilacs nodding by a garden gate, weeping willows overhead, also roses white and red.
Also, customers to buy the garments.
Wait! As I strolled among the roses and chrysanthemum, to the bad part of my story, now I come. Suddenly, I ran into Shmuel Kanan.
Who is Shmuel Kanan? From around here. A very coarse young person.
Who's also built like an ox. Shmuel took one look at me and threw my pack in the mud.
Ay, ay, ay. For what reason?
It's just what I said. Shmuel, for what reason? And he said, to my territory Pinkus, who invited you. On his face was an expression far from pretty. Then he hits me with a fist like an Irish pugilist, and he hollers, "Bum, get out of Jersey City."
Get out of Jersey City?
That's what he said.
For a little thing like that, Shmuel Kanan knocks you down?
With a blow just like a thunderbolt, he fells me.
Aaron, I'll share with you a secret. Jersey City is not on Long Island.
Jersey City isn't what?
On Long Island.
How come not?
Jersey City's in New Jersey.
Now he tells me.
Papa, that's terrible.
It's worse than terrible. It's terrible. I'm a person of the book, an educated man. In me the flame of burning brightly glows. I can cite you by the page, every scholar, every sage, from the Iliad, the Odyssey, the works of William Shakespeare, both the poems and the prose. With the intellect within me that the Holy One bestows, ask a question and the answer, Aaron Pinkus always knows. But don't ask a man like this to peddle clothes.
Aaron, eat something. You'll feel better. Dear editor of the Bintel Brief, I have a prospect, but also a problem. Morris Brodkin loves me. Morris Brodkin says he wants to marry me. He adores no other except his mother. He talks of her frequently. Morris Brodkin is mine. Through his glasses I can see the love light shine. There's a look entreating, a voice repeating, Mrs. Brodkin, come to me. Leave no picture of grace. There are better looking fellows every place. But there's no denying that after some trying, I've grown accustomed to his face. Morris Brodkin wants me. Morris Brodkin wants to know what's gonna be. But to answer yes'll oblige me to nestle in a 2-room apartment for 3. Morris Brodkin, his mother, and me.
Thank you, Nora. That's, ladies and gentlemen, that's Nora Menken. I want to give thanks, particular thanks. Don't you love these songs? I just think Laugh a Little, Cry a Little. It's a show we should bring back someday. But I want to give special thanks to Chip Fabrizi, my friend who runs PPI Recording Studios, where I've recorded for almost 30 years. And he's down on Mercer Street, still going strong. And he's been a godsend to be able to do these recordings and spend time mixing them and mastering them and have fun with them. Now I'm jumping back to the 1930s and one of the most popular songs of the decade. It was originally translated as "To me, you're beautiful," which in Yiddish was, yeah, "Bei mir bist du schön." Sholem Sekunda wrote the melody, and Jacob Jacobs wrote the Yiddish lyrics for a 1932 Yiddish language comedy musical called "I Would If I Could," or "Menken lieben nor men lust nicht." You can correct me on my Yiddish. You could live, but they don't let you. It played one season at the Parkway Theater in Brooklyn. Now, there are varying stories about how lyricist Sammy Cahn and composer Saul Chaplin changed it. But in 1937, the song became a worldwide hit when the Andrews Sisters recorded it. I have a quote here from American Studies professor and author Stephen J. Whitfield that the song's popularity and influence in pre-war America epitomizes how a minority, immigrant culture can transform the popular arts of a large democratic nation. Now, I know you know it too, so please sing along with me. Of all the girls I've known, and I've known some, until I first met you, I was lonesome. But when you came in sight, dear, my heart grew light, and this old world seemed new to me. You're really swell, I have to admit you deserve expressions that really fit you. And so I've racked my brain, hoping to explain all the things that you do to me. Bei mir bist du schön, please let me explain. Bei mir bist du schön means that you're grand. Bei mir bist du schön, again I'll explain. It means you're the fairest in the land. I could say bella, bella, even say wunderbar. Each language only helps me tell how grand you are. I've tried to explain, bei mir bist du schön, so kiss me and say you understand. From Saul Chaplin and Julie Stein, and Sammy Cahn, that is. I'll try now. Seymour Kaufman. I'm moving on to Seymour Kaufman. Know him? No? Seymour Kaufman was one of Broadway's greatest composers. Now, you most likely can sing many of his songs yourself, like perhaps The Best Is Yet to Come, or Witchcraft, or songs from his Broadway shows like On the 20th Century, or Barnum, which was conducted by Peter Howard. I just bring him up again. Oh, he changed his name to Cy Coleman. Maybe you know him better as Cy Coleman. Now, Cy's last musical in 2004 was called The Great Ostrovsky. It played in Philadelphia and didn't make it to Broadway. The musical looked back at the theatrically rich and politically complex world of Yiddish theater in New York between the 1880s and 1920s. I'd like to share with you a beautiful ballad, I'd Love to Be in Love with You, one of Cy's last from this musical. To sing it is my friend Stephen Brinberg, who you may know simply as, you may be more likely to know him as simply Barbara. Here is Stephen, and I'd love to be in love with you.
I'd love to be in love with you. It fills my heart to see how somebody like you could want nobody like me. The truth is I adore you in my peculiar way. I'm grateful for the kindness they never can repay. If I could fall in love with you, I'd give my all no less. But what we wish and what we dream belong to fate, I guess. You're everything a woman would want a man to be. If I could fall in love with you, I'd love to be love with you. You're everything a woman would want a man to be. You'd be wonderful for someone. I'd be happy for that someone. I'm so sorry that that someone's not
Thank you, Stephen. And if you, that really wasn't Barbara Streisand, that really was my friend Stephen Brimberg. And if you don't know Stephen's work, you can go to his website, simplybarbara.com, and enjoy other performances by Stephen. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'd like to close with a favorite song of mine. Earlier, you heard Nora Menken sing Morris Brodkin Loves Me. Now here's a song by her father, composer Alan Menken. Alan wrote both music and lyrics for this song. My late friend Jeffrey Dunn gave Alan the idea for the song around 45 years ago when they were working on an act together. I hope you enjoy. Picture me as a little less Jewish. Hi, my name's Michael. I just got to New York City from Texas, and I want to tell you about my first experience in New York City. When I first saw New York City, I felt a weakness in my knees. So I went to a kosher deli and asked for a ham and cheese. No cheese, no ham. I guess I don't know where I am. American is apple pie, peanut butter and jam. I was getting desperate. The hunger moved to my soul. So I went next door to Radner's and asked for a buttered roll. The waitress suggested a bagel or a bialy with a schmear. She said, enjoy, don't finagle. Try it, you'll like it, dear. She brought me pink fish on a big stale donut with a glob of cream cheese sitting on the side. What is this pink fish? Am I supposed to eat this? They didn't even heat this. I think it's still alive. Then I went to my first audition for Fiddler on the Roof. When I saw the other actors there, thought I'd made a goof. No beanie, no beard. I guess I must have looked kind of weird. Then I heard it was a religious show. Well, I was mighty cheered. So I strode into the tryout and sang Amazing Grace. When I heard the director cry out and fall flat on his face, he went splat, not crunch. You know, I kind of had a hunch. So I took a look and I was right. His face was in his lunch, which consisted of pink fish on a big stale donut with a glob of cream cheese sitting on the side. They were all eating pink fish. It makes me go nuts. I may have no guts, but I got my pride. My pastor came to visit. I made grits and chicken fried steak. Something was wrong. I said, Father, what is it? He said, son, I need a break. Take me to a Jewish deli for a corned beef and a knish. I may have a Texas belly, but I want a New York City dish. Well, they tell me that I fainted. I guess I could have passed for dead. I said, oh Lord, please send a sign. He sent his son instead. And I dreamt I was following Jesus, and the people were coming in droves. He said, try what my daddy hath made to please us. And he took out the fishes and the loaves. He was passing out pink fish on big stale donuts with globs of cream cheese sitting on the side. So I ate pink fish and it made me go nuts. I may have no guts, but I swallowed my pride. Amazing grace, how sweet the taste that made a mensch of me. I once was lost, but I found my pride, 'cause I fixed my pingfish, southern fried. Good yantif, y'all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna thank you so much for being here today. I'm gonna let Suzanne take over. It's almost just about 5:30, but if you have any questions and answers, I'd love to help talk to you guys.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael, and thank you, Barbara. Barbara is still around. I don't know if you're interested at all in taking some questions as well, if you're able to. If you do have questions, please put it in the Q&A box, and we will get to as many as we can if you're able to stick around. The first question is about Marvin Hamlisch. Someone would like to know if he had any songs that were in the works when he passed away, and is that what your CD is about?
Very good question. I don't believe he had. Well, he was always working on something, and I know he had shows in the planning stages when he died. He had been sick for a while. He'd been conducting the Pasadena Pops, and Larry Blank took over for. Actually, Michael Feinstein inherited the reins and became the conductor after Marvin died. I can tell you what specifically on our CD. His widow Terry gave us permission to go to his copyist in Los Angeles and basically play supermarket sweep and get everything and go through it all and go, okay, I'd like a copy of that. He wrote a musical in 1985 called Smile. Now, Smile was originally written in the earlier with the lyricist Carolyn Lee, who wrote with Cy Coleman, a lot of songs with Cy Coleman, chose with Cy Coleman, like Wildcat and Little Me. She wrote an entire score, and they had a readings of it, and they ended up getting rid of her, replacing her with Howard Ashman. And the Howard Ashman score played in Baltimore, then came to Broadway in 1985, where it didn't run very long, but it's a great score, and I think they're both great scores. So I decided to record several songs, one from the Howard Ashman score, but several from the Carolyn Lee score, including Randy Graff sings one of them. We've got wonderful Broadway people. There's also a show called Sweet Smell of Success that Marvin wrote with Craig Carnelia, and we recorded 3 cut songs, with 2 of them with Kelly O'Hara and 1 of them with Nancy Opel. Kelly was the original lead. She sang her 2 songs that she'd sung. Marvin's last musical was a musical version of the movie The Nutty Professor, directed by Jerry Lewis. And I saw it in Nashville, and we decided we wanted to get the original character lady, Clea Blackhurst from the original cast, to sing her big song. We also had Marissa McGowan, who was the romantic lead, sing her song from the show, so that's on there. Then we have Marvin and Craig Carnelia were also working on a musical version of Bullets Over Broadway with Woody Allen. And Woody ended up replacing them with songs that were out of copyright from before 1924. But there's a beautiful song that wasn't plot related, so we could include it, sung by the beautiful singer-actress Leah Horowitz, who was in the Follies revival on Broadway. Also, we have Tony Sheldon, the wonderful Australian performer, singing a song that was written for a TV version of The Entertainer, the Jack Lemmon, the John Osborne play that Jack Lemmon started in the early 1970s, called Leaving's the Only Way to Go. It's The Only Way to Go, it's called. And it was actually George Burns. You could see a YouTube of George Burns singing it too. And then the last thing was an entire sequence of songs from a play with songs by Marvin and Craig Carnelia. Again, they wrote a lot of things together, called Imaginary Friends, which was about the relationship between Lillian Hellman and Mary McCarty. We sang some songs, recorded some songs that were cut from that. We have some demos of Marvin singing these himself, which is wonderful. But the basic answer to the question, we really didn't have anything new that hadn't been finished yet that I had access to at his archives. I think the Library of Congress is getting all of his sheet music, so you can find things there, but I don't think there was any new musicals there. Anyway, hope that answers your question.
I don't know if you have anything else to say about the last song. I know a lot of people were asking if it was from a show. I know that you said that it was not, but that was a big hit today.
That's great, thanks. It's actually called Pinkfish. You can see Alan Menken. It's always wonderful to see the composer himself performing his material. And if you go to YouTube, you can easily find Alan Menken talking a little bit more about the origin of that song. It's called Pinkfish. As I said, it was written for an act in 1975 that Alan, I believe it might have been Alan's own act. You can find that out online. And I've been singing it for 30 years and just do it at the drop of a hat because I have a lot of fun doing it. I do. Is there anything else they want to know? That was by Alan Menken. He doesn't always write lyrics, but this was a song he wrote lyrics, and it shows he's a pretty good damn good lyricist, I think, too, and should do more lyrics too.
Great. And yeah, we want two people want to know. One person wants to know if there are any recordings of the Great Ostrovsky, and is there a score or album available of Milk and Honey?
Yes, you should be able to buy. I don't think Milk and Honey is out of print. You should be able to get it on Amazon or eBay if it's out of print. But there definitely was an album made many years ago, back in 1961. And the Great Ostrovsky I don't believe it was recorded. That's why I think the song that I just recorded with Steven Brinberg, we actually recorded a number of years ago, that will be on my future album, is the only song that was really recorded from it. I have the score. Maybe I'll record some more of them. I mean, I love recording some wonderful Cy Coleman songs I know that people don't know that should know. So there is no extant recording right now so far.
Great. Is there a recording from the Jan Pierce show?
No, that's the same thing. Those 5 songs you just heard today are the first time anybody's heard anything from Laugh a Little, Cry a Little since 1974. I'm planning on hoping to do an entire recording of the whole score. And Richard Kind is an old friend, and I love working with him, and I'd love to have him involved, and all the people we had involved before. I think it's a terrific score, and I hear the other songs are just as good, so we'll see what happens. Great.
Do you want to share your contact information again for people who want?
Yes, my email address is Broadway, the word Broadway spelled out, followed by my initials, MHL. So Broadway, MHL at AOL.com. Yep, still on AOL. And I have a website, Michael Levine, www.michaellevine, and it's Lavine, michaellevine.net. You can see some videos of me there, etc.
Great. Someone wants to know if you know Barack Obama.
Oh, Barry, yeah, no, just kidding. None of us, Barack transferred into Columbia after I'd already started there, but I have my class day program, and I see my name, L, and you go M, N, O, and there's Barack Hussein Obama. So I know he was behind me online at graduation at least, but we didn't share any classes. There were 700 people in the class, which is a small class, but I didn't know him, sadly.
And the relationship between Nora Menken and Alan Menken?
Nora is Alan's daughter. Alan and Menken and I have a long family history, as my mother's sitting here listening now. Our grandmother, Alan's grandmother and my grandmother were best friends. Alan's mother and my mother knew each other since they were 10 years old. My mother's 95 now, and Alan's mother just passed away at the age of 96, 97. And Alan's daughter, Nora, was my assistant for a while, worked for me, and she was so good. I said, I want you to record. So she did several recordings for me. And she was in Hunchback of Notre Dame at Paper Mill Playhouse. And her father, I know, is very, very proud of her. I don't think she's pursuing musical theater anymore. I think she's in fashion now, but I'm not sure. Her sister, Alan's sister, lives upstairs in my building right here, so I'm sure she can probably tell us.
Great. And did Stephen Sondheim do anything particularly Jewish?
I looked into that to see if he did. I'm sure people will write in going, well, what about this that Sondheim did? Nothing off the top of my head comes to me. I don't know. Can you think of anything? I can't think. I'm sure he did. I don't know offhand, though. Nothing comes to me.
I'm trying to, Barbara, I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add, but you're muted, so I can't. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to be able to stay for the show, but Michael and Suzanne, I just loved it, and I hope you do more. Honestly, I will be a fan forever. And it was just so much fun, and hearing songs I never heard before. It was great. And Michael, you're very special. So
thank you, Barbara.
I enjoyed just sitting here and cavelling.
Okay, I
loved it.
All my listeners, thank you so much today for coming. It means so much that you came to hear me, and we'll have it on video. Yes. What's the deal with that, Suzanne?
Absolutely. We will have it on up on our website in the next few days, and we will send an email out with a link to that, along with the playlist of everything that was played today, and some additional resources. And again, thank you both so much. It was so enjoyable. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.